everything I knew about Christianity, I pretty much learned from Ned Flanders on The Simpsons. One day I prayed to receive Christ, and the world became a different place ever since. Not just as a soldier, not just as a young man, but I saw myself as principally a follower of Christ.
So Mike, you now have a PhD, you lecture at a theological college, you've written several books. End of high school, what were you like?
I was pretty confused, pretty depressed. Home life wasn't great for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was a B- student, so I was okay, but not brilliant. I couldn't get into any university courses. My grades were not good enough, so the only thing I could think to do was join the army.
Wow.
And but I was pretty diminutive. When I joined the army, I weighed 45 kilograms. I had the body of a scrawny chicken.
So it was either that or a jockey?
Yeah, or my stepfather would love to have me become a jockey, but no, I was never going to do that. So yeah, I joined the army, went into the infantry, ended up in military intelligence as well, which was far better for my nature.
Just going backwards a bit. So what was home life, family life like?
It was very dysfunctional, spasmodically abusive. Both of my parents had addiction issues with alcohol, gambling, and it made them people who could be very unsafe, who did not have it all together.
Yep.
And you constantly had to live your life in fear of where your parents were at in their mood, their mental health, their substance issues, and it led to domestic and family violence, poverty, and a whole bunch of sort of associated social pathologies and traumas. You get that with family breakdown and those sorts of things going on.
So in that setting, was there church, faith, belief, anything?
No, we were a very non-religious family. Even my mother could be a little bit anti-religious. In fact, she would really verbally abuse the J-dubs if they came to the door. It was not a safe space for J-dubs on our doorstep, I'll tell you that much. And yeah, I mean, it was a non-religious place. I mean, I wouldn't say I was particularly anti-religious, maybe a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But everything I knew about Christianity, I pretty much learned from Ned Flanders on The Simpsons. So it was,
So you're in military intelligence. What drifted you towards that?
Well, being infantry was okay, but being an infantry soldier is a bit like being a professional athlete.
Okay.
It is, physically quite demanding because you've got to carry weapons, equipment over a massive amount of hills and terrain and crawl up mountains and shoot at people. It's physically demanding, and it does take a big toll on your body.
Yep.
And I did that from the ages of 17 to 21. So I had a number of years doing it, but I thought I've got to find another aspect of life or another vocation. And I was kind of fairly quasi-academic. I had good writing skills, and so going into military intelligence was really good for me because I felt like I'd hit my groove in the military, because this is all about taking information, processing it, analysing it, and then disseminating it and sending it out to the people who need to know about it. So it was both an intellectual activity, but also something performative, because you've then got to develop writing skills and oral communications. And that really did, I felt like I'd hit my groove when I'd done that. And I felt like I really did reach a point where I was doing something I was actually good at for the first time.
So you're in military intelligence, you're developing skills that you think, I'm good at that, good at this. Where did faith kind of intersect your life then?
Yeah, well, during my time in the infantry, I was at Holsworthy Barracks, and I'd been there for a few years, and I was just doing what, young army guys do, work hard, play hard, go out, have a few drinks, chase a few girls. And yeah, I did that for a while, but I found it very meaningless, and I wasn't enjoying life. And I thought, there's got to be more to life than this. And a colleague invited me out to church. I'd never been to church before, so I thought I would go along, for something different. And I was expecting a church filled with moralizing geriatrics. That's kind of what was my stereotype of the average church. And I went along and it was nothing like that.
Let me get back to the moralising geriatrics, but let me just go back a bit. So what is it that you think caused you to think there should be more than this? Because, a lot of people go through life and seemingly never ask that question or seemingly never explore. So what was it caused you to go, this is not working?
I guess for me, it was the idea that life is meaningful, but I don't have any rationale for believing that. Okay. Like I believe my actions matter. Like my actions are not morally meaningless. Like in a truly godless universe, if you help an old lady cross the road or push her in front of a bus, the universe doesn't care.
Right.
Okay, you haven't offended the rings of Saturn. There's no symbol for evil on the periodic table. If there is no God, our actions are morally meaningless. Now, we can pretend they're meaningful and create whole systems of ethics, but they're just arbitrary. I mean, and in the absence of God, all ethics are aesthetics. To say killing people is wrong is like saying, I don't like garlic-flavoured ice cream. Okay, It's purely a statement of aesthetic preference. It's not an actual reality as if it's written on the rings of Saturn that you should not go around killing men, women and children.
Wow, so in that setting, those thoughts, and you turn up to the moralising geriatrics?
Yeah,
How did that go?
Well, there weren't any moralising geriatrics. That was the first surprise.
Yep.
There was just a bunch of men and women of all ages, some retirees, teenagers, young couples, people in the midst of their, working career, people with young children, grown-up children, and they were just regular people at some level. But what stood out for me is, but there was something abnormal about them. They truly loved one another, and they were also very much into the business of loving others.
Right.
And they were very kind, generous, and warm towards me. Now, I'd been around nice people before. I know you find nice people anywhere and everywhere, all fates and none. But these people were abnormally, freakishly loving and kind. And, I was obviously very attracted to them for that reason. But I also heard the gospel, the good news of Jesus, his death, resurrection, the forgiveness of sins. And, I realized that I lived in a moral universe, and I was on the wrong side of the moral ledger, as it were. And I had baggage, I had sins, I had offended, God and against other human beings, and I needed redemption myself. So one day I prayed to receive Christ, and the world became a different place ever since.
Yeah, interesting, because you've got the kind of social aspect of these people who are abnormally nice. Then you've got the teaching of the gospel and the good news of Jesus. In that teaching, like the actual kind of framework of Christian faith, was it hard to believe? Did you go through struggling with that, or was it, did it all just fit together more easily for you?
Yeah, I think eventually it was like someone opening a door, and you go into the other room, and all of a sudden you now understand the room that you're living in. So it's kind of like, I wonder where I'm in a room. When does the electricity come from? Why does the sun reflect in this room in this way? So it's like going from one room where you realize there's something going on around. We're not just in here by ourselves. And you go into another room like, now I understand why things happen in that room the way they do.
Yeah.
So that's how I would explain it. It's, I understood better why I lived in the world I did, why I had the intuitions and some of the suspicions that I did at the time.
What changed in the way you lived and functioned?
Well, a number of things. There were, certain habits I gave up pretty quickly. Certain things I knew were out of bounds for a person who was following Jesus. Some things, you have to prune your character and qualities gradually over time. And I could say I'm probably still doing that now, to be perfectly honest. So, there was a few things changed, but, I had a hunger to read the Bible more and more. I got more interested. I started reading it regularly, but then I really got into it. I also really enjoyed going to church, going to Bible study, hanging out with Christian friends and people. And, that became a new center of my life, and something that really sort of began to define who I was, not just as a soldier, not just as a, young man, but I saw myself as principally a follower of Christ.
Michael Bird, thank you.
Great to talk to you, Carl.